Most ghost stories begin in places that already feel haunted: abandoned houses, empty roads, places people stopped using for a reason. But in Korea, some of the worst stories begin in places that are still open, still busy, still rented, still used every single day. And that's what makes them dangerous. Nothing looks wrong at first, and nothing warns you. You only realize the mistake after you've crossed a rule no one ever told you existed. Tonight, 5 Korean true story legends. I'm well over 30 now, and I can only write about this because so much time has passed. Not because I forgot, but because I needed distance from it. Distance from the way my body felt that night, and from the image that still surfaces when I least expect it. It happened during my first summer vacation as a college student, right after graduating high school. I was living and studying in Busan, South Korea, and I desperately needed a part-time job. So I found work at a train station, the kind of job that isn't official and doesn't come with any real title, just a list of things no one else wants to do. I cleaned. I handled whatever was left over. Some nights that meant collecting trash, and some nights it meant waking up drunk passengers who had fallen asleep inside the station, slumped over in places they weren't supposed to be. The first incident happened during the rainy season, when the rain wasn't just falling, it was pouring nonstop. That night I was doing what I always did, picking up trash inside the station, then stepping out because it was late and the work extended beyond the building itself. I was cleaning near the railway tracks, walking along the edge where the ground turns rough and stony, and the rain made everything feel heavier. My clothes, my hands, even my mood. I kept thinking the same thing over and over: just finish quickly and get some rest. That's when I saw it. About 100 meters away along the railway tracks, something white fluttered in the distance. It looked like a piece of cloth caught on something, the way trash sometimes gets snagged and refuses to move. That area was near a tunnel and had a lot of pillars and structures, so I didn't treat it like anything important. I assumed a sheet or some fabric had blown in and gotten stuck, and I ignored it. But the next day I saw it again. And the day after that, I saw it again. Every night when I went out to clean near the tracks, that same white cloth was there, faintly moving in the rain-dark distance. By that point, it seemed like it should have been a problem for train operations, but no supervisor ever told me to remove it. It bothered me, sure, but I was also quietly glad nobody was giving me extra work. Still, it kept nagging at me. Not because it was dangerous, at least I didn't think so, but because it was always there, like a question someone refused to answer. Eventually, I convinced a coworker, another part-timer, to go remove it. I remember how casually I asked and how casually he agreed, as if I'd asked him to throw away an empty cup. Looking back now, that request feels like the starting point of everything. The moment I touched something I shouldn't have touched, even if only through someone else. The next day I came to work and my coworker wasn't there. I assumed he had the day off, but then he didn't show up the next day either. And the next time I saw someone who'd been there longer, I asked, almost as an afterthought, whether the guy who worked with me had quit. They told me he quit the day before. The rain had been heavy, the work had been miserable, and people quit all the time, so I didn't give it much weight. I brushed it off and told myself it didn't matter. Then cleaning time came again, and I found myself complaining under my breath as I walked back out toward the railway tracks. And there it was. That white cloth was still fluttering in the distance. I remember thinking, almost irritated, Oh, that thing is still there. And then, in the same breath, another thought slid in. Quiet, unwelcome, but sharp enough to change how the air felt in my lungs. Wait, he said he'd take care of it. In that instant, my coworker's sudden quitting and that white shape by the tracks matched up in my mind. It didn't make logical sense, but it felt connected anyway, like two pieces clicking into place with the sound you don't want to hear. It was late, so there were no trains running. The tracks were empty, the station behind me was quieter than usual, and the rain made everything sound distant, like the world had been wrapped in wet fabric. Curiosity took over, the kind that doesn't feel like curiosity anymore, but like obligation, like something is pulling you toward the answer. So I walked. I moved along the rocky path, each step crunching on wet stones, and the closer I got, the more uneasy I felt. Not the normal fear of being alone at night, but something stranger, like my body was warning me before my brain could catch up. I must have taken about 30 steps when I stopped and squeezed my eyes shut, because some part of me already knew what I was about to confirm. It wasn't cloth, it was a person. It was night, and rain can blur your vision, and my mind tried to bargain with reality. I forced myself to open my eyes again, just once, just to be sure, and the shape didn't change. It didn't become fabric. It didn't become trash. It remained a person, a woman with short hair. The moment I truly registered her as a human figure, my body moved on its own. I ran faster than I ever have in my life, not thinking about direction, not thinking about safety, only thinking about distance. I tripped on a stone and went down hard, but I was so terrified I didn't even feel pain. I just kept trying to move, trying to get away. And then the next thing I remember is lying in the staff lounge. I was on a lounge chair and someone had wrapped a clumsy bandage around my head. The ceiling above me looked wrong in that hazy way ceilings look wrong when you wake up somewhere you didn't fall asleep. I realized time had passed, and my first instinct was to get up and go outside, to check, to prove to myself it wasn't real. But my body wouldn't move. I tried to lift my arm, nothing. I tried to sit up, nothing. And as the fear shifted from confusion to panic, a thought came in cold and simple. Am I badly hurt? Without meaning to, my eyes drifted to the lounge door, and she walked in. She wore a white dress, and one arm and her face were severely disfigured, crushed, ruined in a way that didn't look like a wound someone survives. I didn't need a second look to know she wasn't from this world. She didn't move like a living person moves. She moved like something that had already finished dying. She came toward me, and the feeling that rose up wasn't only terror. It was helplessness so complete it made my mind crack for a second. I actually let out a hollow laugh, not because anything was funny, but because my brain couldn't find another sound to make. She pushed her grotesque face close to mine and wrapped her hand around my throat. I couldn't fight. I couldn't pull away. I couldn't even turn my head. Inside my mind, the only words I could form were the same two words, over and over, like a prayer I didn't believe in but needed anyway. Please, please. Her grip tightened, and the edges of my vision began to darken. It wasn't dramatic. It was clinical, like the lights in the world were being dialed down. I thought with sudden clarity, I'm going to die here. And then, at that exact moment, my eyes snapped open. The coworker, the same coworker who'd quit, was there, and paramedics were coming into the room. They explained what had happened. I had collapsed in the rocky area beside the railway tracks, and my head was bleeding badly. Someone found me, carried me in, and laid me down in the lounge. The first thing I thought of was the woman. My coworker and I went out together to check. There was no woman and there was no white cloth. Nothing at all. After that, I quit the job. I still don't know what that cloth was or who that woman was supposed to be. But sometimes I think about my coworker quitting right after I asked him to remove it, and the thought that follows makes me laugh in a way that isn't happy. And it also makes me feel guilty. Because I can't stop wondering whether he quit because he saw something, or whether he quit because something saw him. In October 2002 in Seoul, a woman's body was discovered in a basement room in a neighborhood called Yungamdong. The body wasn't found in the middle of a room, and it wasn't found by accident in a place people normally look. It was found in a hidden space beneath the basement stairs, a space that had been sealed off with cement bricks that had been used like a stand for a refrigerator, as if the purpose of those bricks had always been storage, and no one was meant to imagine what they were truly sealing. The landlord, a man named Jaeong, found the space while doing bathroom renovations. He discovered that sealed area under the stairs and struck it with a pickaxe. Behind those bricks, he found the body of a woman dressed in winter clothes. The body had been left there for over 5 years. It was found in a mummified state. Later, investigators identified the deceased as a woman in her mid-50s. 5 years and 4 months after her death, police arrested the perpetrator. The culprit, a man named G, had borrowed 12 million won from the victim in March 1997 for a card-cashing business. When she came to collect the debt, they argued, and during that argument, he struck her head with an iron pipe, killing her. Then he hid her body beneath the basement stairs. Up to that point, the story sounds like a straightforward crime: murder, concealment, and a delayed arrest. But what made this case linger in people's minds wasn't only the body under the stairs. It was what people had been saying for years, before anyone knew the truth. Because long before the body was discovered, that building was already infamous. The building had been constructed in 1992, and its basement had once been used as a clothing factory. Many people worked there, and some even lived close by. Over time, a pattern formed. Stories so consistent, they became a local legend. Tenants who stayed in that basement room said they heard a woman crying. Some claimed they heard a woman laughing at night, or even a child crying. Many described sleep paralysis, the sensation of waking up unable to move, feeling a presence, feeling the air turn cold in a way that didn't match the season. Others said they saw a young woman. People reportedly quit the factory work because of it, because sleep is something you can't bargain with, and fear is something that eventually charges interest. One tenant said he weighed 93 kilograms when he moved in. Then, night after night, he began to experience sleep paralysis, always with the same sensation, like a woman was choking him. Over time, his weight dropped to 62 kilograms. He couldn't endure it anymore, and he called a shaman to perform an exorcism. The shaman reportedly told him he was being held by a female spirit with a powerful grudge. The next tenant didn't believe any of it. He moved in thinking it was just rumor and suggestion. And then he experienced the same thing. He said that whenever he slept in that room, he felt the sensation of being choked and the presence of an intense cold. He said that when he looked into a mirror, he sometimes saw a woman with disheveled hair, an image that didn't belong to him, an image that made him doubt what reflection meant. Tenants left quickly. The room gained a reputation that spread beyond the building itself. Then, during the police investigation into the concealed body, another set of facts emerged. Facts that poured fuel onto every rumor that had been circulating. Over the 10 years since the building was constructed, 6 people had died connected to that place. The first death was the very first tenant, who hanged himself. The next tenant died of cancer. And even more chilling, among the 9 people who worked at the basement factory, 4 died sudden deaths. Car accidents, illnesses that took them quickly, lives ending with no warning. When those numbers became public, the Dong ghost story spread even further. People speculated that the building was cursed, that the woman sealed in concrete had left something behind that poisoned the place, that the air itself had become hostile. Police publicly stated there was no connection, and on paper the timeline raises a difficult point. The woman was murdered in 1997, but people had begun dying in the building earlier than that, which means that in total, 7 people died in that building over a 10-year period, and the haunting stories didn't neatly begin with the murder. After the case became widely known, no tenants moved in. The aftermath was that even when the property was said to be offered for free, no one came. And people still say that, to this day, no one has moved into that place. In just 10 years, so many people died, and so many residents reported the same experiences: sleep paralysis, cold, a woman, a presence that came in the night like it had a schedule. No one knows why that female figure appears, or what she wants. But if you've ever lived in a place where the rent is too cheap, where the hallway feels colder than it should, and where the silence at night feels intentional, then you understand why some locations stop being property and start being warning. At the time, I was running a bar in Incheon, a city near Seoul. Business was good enough that I should have been grateful. But I made a stupid decision and got involved in gambling. I lost control, and eventually I had to shut the place down. I needed a new start, and I needed it somewhere cheaper, because my money wasn't even close to enough to restart in the same area. I searched near the neighborhood where my old place had been, hoping to find something affordable, but everything was out of reach. Then an acquaintance, someone younger than me, called and said there was a cheap property deep inside a market area in Guwaldong, Incheon. He told me it used to be a coffee shop, and that the price was much lower than the surrounding rates. I didn't hesitate. I rushed there. When I went deeper into the market, I found the property tucked into a corner inside a 3-story building. The space was in the basement. It was about 40 pyong, around 130 square meters, big enough to build 5 private rooms, which was perfect for the kind of business I intended to run. But the moment I stepped inside, a musty smell hit me hard. It smelled like a place that had been closed too long, like stale air that had been soaking into concrete for years. Normally, that would have made me careful, but I had gambling debt. I didn't have the luxury of being picky. I tried to negotiate with the building owner, an older woman, thinking I might be able to shave the price down. To my surprise, she cut the price immediately, almost too easily, as if she wanted the place gone more than she wanted money. At the time, I thought she was simply generous, maybe even unusually straightforward. I signed the contract that day, and when I opened the bar, the business did incredibly well. Not only did I pay off my debts, but I started seeing my bank balance climb again, like the building itself was rewarding me for coming in. About 3 months later, one of my waiters asked to talk. Because we worked late nights, I let some of the waiters sleep at the shop. It was common in that line of work. Too late to go home, too early to commute, so you sleep where you can. That waiter told me he absolutely couldn't sleep in the shop anymore. When I looked at him closely, I realized he'd changed. He'd lost weight quickly. His dark circles were deep. He looked drained, as if someone had been taking something from him while he slept. I assumed I'd been too busy to notice, and that maybe he was simply exhausted. Then he said it. He said he thought there was a ghost in the shop, and that he was too scared to stay. I reacted the way most people react when they don't want to accept something like that. I told him it was nonsense, asked what a grown man had to be afraid of, tried to laugh it off. But he didn't smile. He looked serious, almost embarrassed, like he hated admitting it but couldn't keep pretending. He begged me to let him sleep somewhere else. So I got him a small basement room nearby, a cheap one-room space. The relief on his face was immediate, like I'd handed him back his life. He smiled all day after that, and I told myself the problem was solved. Time passed. About 4 months into the business, I had completely forgotten about the ghost story. Then, at the end of the month, I stayed late to do the accounts. The waiter was cleaning. After he finished, he didn't leave right away. He lingered, fidgeting, hovering near me like he didn't want to go too far inside the building again. Finally, he asked if he could leave early. I teased him, asked if he had a girlfriend waiting, but he didn't play along. He just said he wanted to go, and the fear on his face was so obvious that I stopped joking and told him to leave. So I was alone. I sat at the counter, finishing the ledger, pen in hand, adding numbers in a tired haze. That's when I heard a sound from the very last room, deep inside. At first, I thought it might be a rat or something moving in the walls. But then the sound became clearer, sharper, and suddenly unmistakable. A tambourine. Not the random rattle of something falling. This was the sound of a tambourine being played, metal jingles striking with rhythm. I walked toward the room, and the moment I stood in front of the door, the sound stopped. I opened the door carefully. The room was dark, so I turned on the light. No one was inside. I stared for a few seconds, then told myself the obvious lie. I'd been drinking earlier. Maybe I was hearing things. I turned away and went back to the counter, trying to re-enter the normal world of numbers and paper. I picked up my pen, and the sound returned. The tambourine again, clearer than before, as if it wanted me to understand that the first time wasn't an accident. This time I didn't think ghost. I thought thief. I grabbed a heavy object nearby, something like a club, and moved slowly toward the door, careful with my steps, careful with my breathing. I reached for the doorknob. The sound stopped again. I threw the door open, and this time the light inside was already on. But the room was empty. I searched everywhere, under the sofa, behind anything that could hide a person. Nothing. No one. And yet I could still remember the sound too well. It didn't sound like someone shaking a tambourine loosely. It sounded like someone striking it with a hand, making it ring in place. I stood there, not knowing what to do. Eventually, I told myself I'd had too much to drink, that I was tired, and that the smartest thing was to go home. I turned off the light, closed the door, and turned away. The tambourine erupted again. Not from inside the room, not muffled by a door, but right beside me, loud enough that my skin prickled instantly. At the same time, I felt something tug at the back of my hair, like fingers hooking into it. I froze. My feet wouldn't move. My mind filled with frantic thoughts, and one of them landed harder than the rest. I might actually die here. I forced myself to run, sprinting back to the counter like my life depended on it. I grabbed the ledger, and without even turning off the main lights, I rushed to the front entrance and locked the door. I was shaking so badly I could barely get the key to turn. Then my eyes caught the back room, the one I'd left in panic. Its door had glass. And through that glass, low to the ground, I saw something that made my body go numb. A pale woman was crouched on the floor. She was looking directly at me, and she was playing the tambourine like she was enjoying herself. I didn't almost wet myself. I did, right there. My pants soaked, warm and humiliating, while my brain screamed at my body to move. I bolted out of the building and ran until I reached a place with streetlights, a place with open air, a place where I could see corners and exits. And that's where I finally understood why my waiter had looked the way he looked. That's why he couldn't sleep there. And I couldn't understand how he'd endured even 2 months. After that, I walked away from the shop. I walked away from the business, the money, all of it. Later, I learned that people in the market avoided that building even during the day. The reason the owner had offered such a low price wasn't generosity, it was desperation. The place wouldn't rent because everyone already knew. Even now, when I think back, what stays with me isn't only the fear, it's the expression on her face. This happened 6 years ago, and I'm writing it down without a single lie. Noryangjin is a neighborhood in Seoul, famous for one thing: students. People preparing for civil service exams, bar exams, teacher certifications, college entrance retakes. Young people living on tight budgets, surviving on cheap food and stubborn hope. I'm from a smaller city called Chungju, but I came to Noryangjin to retake my college entrance exam. My family didn't have money, so I needed the cheapest place I could find. I toured a lot of tiny accommodations, goshiwons, gosutels, budget rooms, meant for students who basically lived to study. But the prices were still higher than I expected. Then I found a place where the monthly rent was absurdly cheap. It was like a small studio, private bathroom, a sink, a bed. And because it was a one-room tel, it was cleaner and more comfortable than most goshiwons. The problem was obvious. When something is that cheap, you don't feel lucky, you feel suspicious. So I asked the landlady why it was so inexpensive. She answered casually, like she'd said it 1,000 times. She said many students claimed they'd seen a ghost there. It sounded ridiculous, like something from a cheap TV mystery show, but I didn't have options. I moved in. About a week later, I encountered her for the first time. I was in the bathroom using the toilet, and suddenly the light went out. Because the unit was in a semi-basement, the moment the light disappeared, the room became pitch black. At first, I assumed it was a power outage. I reached for toilet paper, trying to finish quickly so I could deal with the electricity. And then a woman screamed into my left ear, not from across the room, right at my ear, close enough that the sound felt physical. She shouted, "This is my room. Get out, now!" It was unmistakably a woman's voice, but it also sounded like she was trying to force it lower, like she was trying to imitate a man, like the voice didn't belong to the mouth that made it. The moment I heard it, I panicked so hard, I didn't even finish wiping. I bolted out of the bathroom, arms flailing in front of me, feeling for walls, stumbling toward the front door. I got the door open and staggered into the main room, breathing like I'd been underwater. I looked around thinking I needed to find the fuse box, thinking I needed to confirm the power outage. And that's when I noticed something that made everything worse. It wasn't a power outage. The bathroom light had been turned off. Someone had pressed the switch. I turned the light back on and searched the room, every corner, every shadow. There was nothing. No one. After that, I did what people always do when they experience something impossible. I tried to rationalize it. I told myself maybe voices carried in from outside because it was a semi-basement. I told myself maybe the light flickered because of voltage issues. I repeated those explanations until they sounded almost believable. Then, 2 days later, I experienced sleep paralysis. I woke up unable to move, and even my eyelids felt heavy, like they were glued shut. But I could hear noise, running footsteps, chaos, like something was happening right in the room. Mixed into it was a sound that resembled an alarm. I lay there wondering whether I was dreaming, and then my eyes slowly opened. A woman so tall her head nearly touched the ceiling was running back and forth across my tiny room as if the world was ending and she was trapped inside it. She wasn't walking. She was sprinting, hard enough that the room felt smaller with every step. And the alarm sound, the warning siren I thought I was hearing from somewhere else, was coming from her mouth. She was making it herself. A human mouth producing something like a mechanical alarm, over and over while she ran. Goosebumps rushed over me from my toes to the top of my head. The moment I broke free of the paralysis, I grabbed what I could and fled to a friend's place. The next morning, I skipped classes and confronted the landlady. I told her what happened, expecting shock, fear, disbelief, anything. She responded like it was normal. She said casually that everyone said she appeared there. I demanded the story. She told me that about a year earlier, a female student had lived in that room, and she loved it so much she even wallpapered it herself. But the student had spent 6 years preparing for the teacher certification exam, failed, and one early morning, she hanged herself on a utility pole right in front of the house. After that, every student who moved into that room saw the ghost. Not a single one failed to report it. The landlady even said she'd give me my deposit back if I left quickly. But I had nowhere to go, so I called my mother and explained everything. Eventually, my mother came to Seoul with a shaman she knew from our neighborhood. And what happened next is the part that still gives me chills. The shaman opened the front door and froze. She didn't step in. She just stared. And then she said something that didn't sound like fear. It sounded like disbelief. She said it was big. Then she asked, as if she was speaking to someone inside, whether I'd already talked to the landlady and how the girl had died. When I said she'd hanged herself, the shaman responded like the answer confirmed something. She said that was why it was so big. My mother, angry and exhausted, told her to get rid of it quickly. The shaman snapped at her. She told my mother to watch her words, because that's a person too. Then the shaman said something even worse. She said that even though she was standing right there, the ghost wasn't even looking at her. And she said the ghost was lying stretched out beside the bed, and that it couldn't be removed. My mother demanded to know what that meant, how anyone could live with a ghost. The shaman answered that the ghost believed the room was her grave. And if another person was sleeping there, of course she would scream for them to get out. We moved to a cafe to talk more, and the conclusion was grim. I could move out, or I could try to appease it, negotiate with it, convince it to stop bothering me. But there was no clean solution. In the end, I managed to move to a Goshiwon. And until the college entrance exams ended, no one moved into that room again. It remains the most terrifying, most chilling thing I've ever lived through. Some people ask where it was, because the area is full of students and rumors spread fast. I can only describe it the way I remember it. If you go up the alley famous for cheap cup rice, it's near an underpass tunnel that leads toward a neighboring area. I went back recently, it was still there. And that's the part I hate the most, because it proves it wasn't a dream and it wasn't something that disappeared after I ran. Even now, thinking about it makes my skin crawl. And more than anything, I wish I could forget it. That day, I woke up early on a holiday morning and I had nothing to do. So, I went to a cinema near my home. The movie was Transformers 3, and I bought the earliest ticket because I was curious about the 3D experience. It felt like a novelty at the time. Putting on the glasses, feeling like the screen was closer, like the movie could reach out and touch you. Because it was morning, the theater was almost empty. Only a section around the upper middle rows had people. The rest of the seats were wide open, dark, and unused. I sat in the middle row where there was nobody else, and I started watching. Not long in, I felt a presence on the far right side of the auditorium. A small movement, a faint shift, the kind of thing you notice without fully seeing. It did make sense because I was sure there had been no one sitting there, and the seat itself was a terrible place to watch from. Off to the side, uncomfortable, the kind of seat people avoid even when the theater is full. With the 3D glasses still on, I looked toward where the presence seemed to be. No one. I told myself I was imagining it and tried to focus on the movie again. Then, I felt it again. Another faint sign of someone being there. This time, I took off the glasses and looked carefully. In the corner seat, a man was sitting there watching the film. What struck me wasn't just that he seemed to have appeared where I hadn't noticed him before. It was what he was doing with his hands. He was moving them in front of him, fiddling with something, or maybe not something, maybe the air. At first I wondered whether he was filming illegally, but it didn't look like a phone, and it didn't look like a camera. It looked like he was reaching out, waving his hand, as if he were trying to catch something invisible. It made me uneasy, and the problem with unease in a dark theater is that it doesn't stay in one place. It spreads. I kept glancing toward him, and every glance made it harder to concentrate on the movie. Then, around the middle of the film, I felt a sudden cold. The temperature dropped so sharply, it felt like my body reacted before my mind did. A chill ran through me and my skin prickled. Instinctively, I thought of the man, and I looked toward the corner. His seat was empty. That immediate absence triggered something like dread, and I scanned the area to find him. And I saw him standing in the aisle between the rows. Not far away, too close. He was standing near the row in front of me, to the right, blankly, as if he'd been there the whole time. The distance was too short for me to feel normal about it. If he'd walked there, I should have noticed. If he'd approached, I should have heard him. But I hadn't. I was afraid he might follow me, so I didn't even consider changing seats. I stayed where I was until the movie ended, forcing myself to endure the rest of the film with my body tense and my mind tracking the space around me more than the screen. When the movie ended and the lights came on, he was gone. I remembered his outfit clearly, a blue striped shirt and dark pants, and I ran out quickly to see if I could find him, thinking maybe I'd confirm he was real and laugh at myself later. But he was nowhere. Not in the lobby, not in the hallway, not anywhere outside. I even went back and looked inside the auditorium again. Nothing. And the moment I felt sure I hadn't been watching a movie with a normal person, I left the building and went straight home. Even though it was summer, chills followed me all the way. I canceled everything that day. I never went back to that cinema. Not because I was afraid of the building but because I wasn't sure what had noticed me, and I wasn't sure it would ignore me a second time. The second cinema story is less ghostly and more disturbing in a different way. I was a student working part-time at a cinema. Jobs were divided into concessions, ticketing, ushering, and cleaning theaters after screenings ended. Everyone I worked with was normal, students trying to earn money. Then one employee started standing out. When you talked to him, he seemed fine. He even seemed gentle. He looked normal too. Nothing about him screamed danger until I noticed what he did after every movie. He worked primarily as an usher, helping customers enter, checking tickets, guiding people to their screens. But when a movie ended, instead of helping collect trash outside or assisting the cleaning staff, he always went inside the theater. It wasn't a big deal at first, but I grew curious. So one day I followed him. Inside the auditorium, I saw him picking up popcorn from the floor and eating it. Not popcorn from a bag. Popcorn that had fallen under seats, scattered, stepped near, mixed with dust. He wasn't doing it once or twice as a joke. He was doing it like it was normal. And it wasn't only popcorn. He picked up nachos and other snack crumbs and ate them too. It shocked me enough that I walked back out immediately, but afterward it kept bothering me. I tried to rationalize it, thinking maybe he was hungry, maybe he had no money, maybe there was some explanation that made it less disgusting. But then I noticed something else. When he checked tickets, he stared at female customers' tickets longer than necessary. Not a glance. He stared like he was memorizing the seat number. And after the movie ended, he would go back inside and eat the popcorn from the floor near that specific seat. Once I understood the pattern, I couldn't stand next to him. I couldn't talk to him normally. The thought of him choosing a woman he liked, memorizing her seat, then eating what she dropped, like it meant something intimate to him, made my stomach turn. I didn't report him. I didn't want conflict. I didn't want him to know I'd noticed. I quit that month. Even now, when I remember him in the empty theater, chewing happily like he'd found something precious, I still get goosebumps. The third cinema story came from the closing shift. Anyone who works at a cinema knows there are certain hours that feel wrong. Opening and closing are the worst, because the building is technically operational but almost empty. And the theaters are dark, silent rooms where corners don't feel like corners. They feel like hiding places. That night I was working the closing shift. Only one late-night movie remained. If no one bought a ticket, we could shut down early and go home. But one customer bought a ticket, only one. So we ran the movie. About 30 minutes into the screening, the customer burst out of the auditorium screaming. He was yelling at the top of his lungs, furious and terrified at the same time, saying someone inside was shouting and moving around, making noise, walking through the rows. I was stunned and told him the truth. There was only one customer in that auditorium. That answer made him angrier. He accused us of lying, demanded a refund, and insisted someone was inside. The intensity of his reaction wasn't the reaction of someone mildly annoyed. It was the reaction of someone who had just been trapped in a room with something he couldn't explain. Something felt off, so I went in with the manager to check. The auditorium was empty, just the movie playing. We escalated it and checked the CCTV, expecting we'd find a prank or a second person slipping in somehow. But the footage showed only one person in the auditorium the entire time. No one entered. No one walked around. No one stood up behind him. No one ran through the rows. That was the end of the screening. Afterward, what made it worse was the rumor among staff that this particular auditorium already had a reputation. People said it was colder than the others. Some said that when movies ended, it sometimes looked like one more person walked out than had walked in. It was the kind of rumor you laugh at until the day it lines up with something real. We concluded the customer must have imagined it. But even now, years later, the part that sticks with me is simple. He didn't just think he heard something. He was so convinced, so shaken, that he ran out yelling like someone was right there with him. And if he truly was alone, then whatever he experienced was loud enough, close enough, and persistent enough to drive him out.